This couple was leaving church once. John, sometimes I wonder if you get anything at all out of going to church. I suppose people get different things out of going to church, right? I know. I'll be honest with you. Some days I know why I'm here. Other days I'm not quite sure. I mean, I know I'm here. I have a job to do, and I'll always do my job. And by the way, just as a total aside, when I'm long and gone, please know how much I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you terribly. But for now, I usually come to church not just because it's my job, but because I come here shoulder to shoulder with you to learn something more about myself and this walk with God. That's why I'm here. Now, full transparency, there are other days I kind of lose sight of that, and I'm more interested in Kathy O'Brien's dress. It's just the way it goes. But I'm trying to stay the course and really focus on something other than somebody's haircut and stuff like that. But I do find myself wondering, why are you here? Why'd you come across the island this morning? I know Zach came because Brandon was singing. And that's a good reason too, buddy. Why'd you come down from Naples? Why'd you come across the bridge? Why are you really here? Oh, I know it's Sunday morning, it's what you do. What really brings you here? After his baptism, and before he begins his public ministry, the first thing Jesus does is he goes to the synagogue for services. He probably knew a lot of the people that were there. After all, it was his home synagogue. He had grown up in that place. Some of them probably taught him the stories of his faith when he was a little kid in Sunday school. You can count on some of the older folks seeing when he was disobeying his parents, when he was teasing his brothers and sisters, when Jesus wasn't doing what we think Jesus should have been doing. Because he was just one of them, right? He was just one of them. He was one of the carpenter's kids. But today he had been baptized. Today he had returned from the wilderness. Today he was beginning his public ministry. He goes to the synagogue. He's handed a scroll. It was the reading for the day. And he stands to read it. And the reading of the day was from Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, he says, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and regaining of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed. But it's what he does next that is so stunning. He closes the scroll and he sits down. Where was the commentary? Where were the associations? Where were the stories? He sits down and he says, today, these scriptures have been fulfilled in your hearing. Boom. Collect the songbooks. That was it. As if to say, that's why I'm here. That's my calling. That's who I am. That's me. Have you ever had an experience where you felt a calling? Oh, I know. Ministers are the ones with the callings. Yeah. You ever had a calling to do something with your life more than just a job? You ever had a calling to where this is why you were born? You ever had that calling where you knew this was your purpose and direction for your life? And there was no lack of clarity about that for him. He knew it as sure as we're sitting here today. It was where he was supposed to be and what he was supposed to do. It was something beyond him. Remember last week we were talking about Martin Luther King and we were talking about that passage where James and John wanted to be on Jesus' left and right in the kingdom of God. And Jesus said, it's okay. Don't shame them. They can want that. They can want to be at the top of the ladder. It's okay. But it's what you do with it. It's whether you serve others with it or if you're just serving yourself. That's the difference between a job and a calling. A calling is where we proclaim release to the captives. It's where we set at liberty those who are in bondage. It's where we proclaim good news to the poor. Because we're doing something with our lives. Friends, that's what a calling is. And as we learned last week, all of us can serve someone. That's the beauty of it. We can all have a calling. Let me put that another way. Are you all listening over here? You listening? Everybody listening? Okay, now that I got your attention. Every one of us can have a calling to serve others. And when we do that, my friends, now we got a hold of something. So I asked the 815, anybody ever heard of this book? I said, I'll bet not one of you raises your hand. I'm a genius. Nobody raised their hand. Well, let me ask, is anybody here, and I'll bet there'll be two, anybody here ever read a book by Bob Goff called Love Does? Anybody? One, I got one. RJ, you ever read Love Does? No? Okay. Well, nobody else, just one. It's a good book, isn't it? It's a good book. Now, I just want to tell you about it. Love Does Bob Goff was admittedly not a very good student when he was in college. And yet, he had this sense of calling that he wanted to go to law school. Not for himself, but because he had this idea, this vision. He had something he had to do with his life. And so he made application at the local law school, and he was turned down. He went to the dean's office, and he pleaded his case to be admitted to law school. And the dean said, "Look, Bob, I'd like to help you out, but we have our criteria. We have our students already picked. We just don't have any more room. Have a nice day." First day of school, Bob went and sat in that bench right outside the dean's office as classes began. And the dean would come out of his office and go down the hall every once in a while, and he would pass by. And at first he acknowledged Bob, he said hello and that sort of thing. But then after a while he quit looking his way. That was the first day. The second day, Bob was on the bench. Third day, Bob was on the bench. Fourth day, Bob was on the bench. Fifth day, Bob was on the bench. When the dean came walking by, and the dean looked down at him and said the words Bob was waiting to hear, "Go buy your books." And he was admitted to law school. Well, he did all right. And he actually passed his bar exam, and he became a lawyer. What happened next gives me chills just thinking about it right now. In 2003, Bob founded Restore International after a trip to India, where he witnessed extreme human rights violations. And he began his ministry, almost said ministry. He began his calling. He had encountered those who were in bonded labor, those who were human trafficked, those who were missing needed education, job opportunities, women's safety, feeding programs, hospitals, even an orphanage. He went around the world setting up these needed services in Uganda, Somalia, Iraq, Nepal. And he did it, he said, to serve others. He wasn't doing it for himself. There was something, I'm sure. He felt like he had his calling. And when you have your calling, you can't have a greater sense of knowing you're in the right place. Because what you do, you see, when you have a calling, is you don't just talk about it. You don't just read about it. You do something with it. Hey, pal, I'll take it from here. You're in the right place, and you know that God is with you because love does. We act on our calling. We fulfill that reason for which we were born. And what's that reason? To serve others and make this world a better place for us and all the children of the world. May God bless you, and may God bless United Church of Marco Island.